Tuesday morning, I go to my orthodontist. I was getting my braces tightened. And I sit down in the bed and he turns on the light. And the moment he turns on the light, I just kind of leave my body and I enter the light. I just literally enter this light and I pass out. And what ends up happening, what my experience is I start following, and this isn't a dreamlike state, I start following another version of myself. So I'm walking, I'm the observer, and I'm seeing another version of myself, and I'm following this version down some path. It's grassy, but this other version of myself is a lot happier. It's a lot like brighter. It's just an individual that I was like, man, I wish I could be that person. And I follow and I get to a point, and then I wake up back into my body. But it's very different. I wake up and I'm pale white, and I start throwing up and I'm very hot. Like I'm like almost like I'm sweating while sitting in the seat. And I look, and the guy that was helping me out was looking at me. He's like, "You okay, man? You like passed out for a few minutes there. Like, you all right?" And I was like, "Nope, I am not okay. Like I am definitely, there's something wrong with me. Like I feel like I start gagging more. I'm almost throwing up on the floor in a very nice dentist's office. It's a very nice place." And then the doctor comes over and the doctor's like, "Oh, you're fine. You just passed out. This happens all the time. This is normal. People pass out on chairs all the time." And I'm like, "I don't think I'm okay." I was like, "I think there's something wrong." He's like, "Oh, no, you're fine." He's like, "I promise you're fine. You can leave now." The doctor allows me to leave in my Tesla. Thank God I had a Tesla. And and I leave and I drive to Santa Monica and I go to a business meeting, and the people at the meeting are like looking at me. They're like, "There is something very wrong with you. Like you need to call a neurologist." I was like, "Oh, I've never talked to a neurologist." Like, so I go on Yelp and I Google neurologist. I call a neurologist's office. I tell them what happened. And they're like, "Sir, you need to get to an ER right away." And I'm like, okay. I drive myself to the Santa Monica ER, the UCLA emergency room. I park my car at the front. I don't even think about it. I left the keys in the car. I just go into the front. I'm like, there's something very wrong with me. I don't feel right. There's like something really wrong with me. They put me in right away. They put me into a CAT scan. And like this moment just kind of changed my life. They were like, "Sir, your brain is bleeding. We think you had a hemorrhagic stroke. We believe you have a thing called a cavernoma in your right temporal lobe. There's nothing that we can do here for you. We have to move you to another hospital to stabilize you. We have to move you to another ICU. Who are people we can call right away?" So I'm like sitting there, and this nurse, I mean, she was the nicest human. I mean, she was everything to me in that moment. And she just hugged me and she said, "It's going to be okay." And just thinking like being in my shoes at this time, you know, I changed my life. I've been so healthy. I had just climbed Haleakala on my bike. Like that, a lot of people barely drive up that thing. I did it on my bike. And then this lady's telling me that I have a cavernoma, a benign brain tumor that's bleeding, and they have to go stabilize me in another place. So I get so my dad comes, my brother comes, and they're just looking at me, and they have to move me inside of an ambulance to the other hospital. They have to put an angiogram as soon as I get to the hospital, which is a camera to make sure that it's not an AVN, because an AVN would kill me overnight.
What's an AVN?
It's something that instead of it would be an artery instead of a vein. So what happened with me was it was a series of veins that exploded in my right temporal lobe. It's the photos are gnarly. Like there's this hole in there's this bleed just bled all over. That's what caused the seizure. The experience I had was a hemorrhagic seizure. And thank God it wasn't an AVN, because they would have to have surgery like immediately and cut my brain open. But they're like, "Listen, we're going to stop the bleeding and we're going to just stabilize you for 3 days in the ICU." So I'm sitting there for 3 days. They had stopped, the bleeding had stopped. They had to wait. What they had to do is, because this had bled so severely, there was a pool of blood sitting in the brain. They have to take this thing out. But because there was so much blood, they couldn't do it that day. They had to wait a few weeks before I could have brain surgery to remove it, because it would have been a stroke risk for me for the rest of my life if they didn't take it out. So I stayed there for 3 days, and then 6 weeks later, I have brain surgery.